Hello everybody and welcome to vlog number 15. Today I'd like to give you 5 tips on how to improve your cinematography skills. Cinematography in its Greek roots splits off into 2 parts, the first being kinema and the second being grapein. Kinema means motion and grapein means to record. So when you put those together, you get recording motion. And that's kind of the media format that you get with film, is you're telling a story through directing, actors, color, audio, camera movement. So a lot of stories should only be told on the film medium. A lot of books should only be a book and they wouldn't translate well to a film, just because there's a lot of dialogue, and film, you don't need as much dialogue to tell that story because you have all these other elements rather than just words on a page. So now that we have kind of a basic understanding of cinematography, let's move on to tip number 1, lighting. Lighting is probably the biggest aspect to cinematography. The whole idea of a camera is light hitting the sensor. And so without that light, you don't have an image. A common mistake that beginning filmmakers make is saying, oh, we'll film the whole thing outside and use natural light. Or we'll just throw one light on our subject inside and call it good. People don't really take into consideration the type of light at the different times of day. If the sun is facing behind these buildings and reaching over them, casting a shadow in all of this space, you either have to expose for the building and completely blow out the sky, or completely underexpose the building and keep the sky in proper exposure. Let's say it's later in the afternoon now. The sun's facing more south and it's high up. The building is completely lit now. We're getting some harsh shadows on the side, but at least now we can get some detail in the sky and the building. Moving on to evening, during sunset, you start to lose more light, but you kind of get some warmer tones in the sky, and the sky and the building should be just about well lit together, and it should be a softer light, so there shouldn't be as harsh of shadows. Before you go on a shoot, make sure that you scout the location, spend a day there, a couple days there, and just really make notes of how the light hits at each hour. Tip number 2. Framing. Every frame should tell a story. Don't just use a medium shot because, oh, it's safe to use a medium shot. Strategically think about how to express each shot. Take the time beforehand and sit down with your director and storyboard out each shot. Really think about the shots and what they mean and the angles within those shots. It will really step your game up. A lot of beginner films, you see a lot of medium shots and not really those detail shots. And it really steps your game up once you start thinking about the shots and what they mean. And the audience really does see that. Also understanding the type of lenses you're using. If you're using a 16mm wide angle lens, it's going to change how the shot looks, even if you framed it up exactly with an 85mm lens. The 16mm lens is going to show a lot of space in between subjects, where the 85mm is going to compress that space down. So if you shot 2 people sitting desks length away, on the 16mm it might look like they're worlds apart, but on the 85mm it might look like they're sitting right next to each other. So take the time to play with your different lenses and see how space is affected within the frame, based on the focal length you're shooting on. Tip number 3, drawing, reading, and writing. I'm not a very good drawer, but something that really helps me is going to the location that we're going to film and drawing out different things I see. Doesn't have to be that good. You can spend as much time on each drawing as you want, but it's forcing you to look at the space that you're going to film in and actually look at the space. You'd be surprised on the things that you come up with. Reading. Don't read books that were made into films. The problem with that is the people who made the film got rid of your imagination and put those ideas in your head, and you can't get those out. So read books that haven't been made into films or that you haven't seen. That will help your mind to create those elements when you're reading, and it'll keep your creativity fresh. Writing. You don't have to write anything planned out. It doesn't have to be a story. It can be just random words in random sequences. It's forcing your mind to think in a new way. Doing those 3 things on a regular basis kind of refresh your imagination and refresh your creativity. Tip number 4, get out and shoot. Even if you don't have a DSLR yet, pull out your phone. Everyone's phone has a camera these days, and there's no reason you can't be out there filming random things to even piece something together. Whether it's going to a specific location, maybe you go to the park, try and tell a story, maybe a day at the park, and get a morning shot, get a lot of detail shots, people playing or whatever they're doing. You'd be surprised at what you learn just by going and forcing yourself to kind of tell a story at one location. And tip number 5, Break the rules. Just because someone tells you to do something one way doesn't mean that it's right. That's the interesting and fun part about filmmaking, is someone will have one way of doing something and this other person will have a completely different way, but each person gets to the end goal and is successful. So don't be afraid to break the rules and use them to your advantage, because once you understand the rules and can break them, it will only help build your perspective even further. I hope you enjoyed today's vlog, and I will see you next time.